the headlines. South American leaders launch a new alliance to save the Amazon, but stop short of pledging to end deforestation by 2030. And the heat goes on. Wildfires rage in Portugal as the United Nations describes recent record global temperatures as extraordinary. Canadian rapper Tory Lanez has been sentenced to 10 years in prison for shooting and wounding Megan Thee Stallion. And Hiroshima and Nagasaki in virtual reality before and after the atomic bombings in 1945.
Abortion rights groups claim victory in an Ohio election vote that became a proxy battle ahead of November. Nigeria refuses to rule out military intervention in Niger. We'll speak with the US ambassador to the United Nations about the crisis.
Now, in a major data breach, the names and work locations of thousands of police officers in Northern Ireland have been mistakenly published online. Though no private addresses were released, the data is particularly sensitive because of Northern Ireland's troubled past and security threats facing police officers. The force's assistant chief constable has apologized to officers, saying this is unacceptable. Now, the former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan has been disqualified from politics for 5 years after receiving a prison sentence for corruption. It means he'll be dismissed as an MP and forbidden to stand for public office before 2028. He denies any wrongdoing and is challenging the decision in a high court on Wednesday. On Sunday, Mr. Khan started serving his 3-year sentence in a jail. The US Secretary of State has warned of the dangers of a Russian mercenary group taking advantage of the military coup in Niger. Speaking to the BBC, Anthony Blinken said wherever Wagner had gone, it left death, destruction and exploitation in its wake. The South African government says that violence connected with a strike by taxi drivers in Cape Town has killed 5 people since Thursday. A minister said the murder victims included a police officer and a British national who were caught up in violent protests. Now, thousands of people, including politicians and pop stars, have turned out to pay tribute to the singer Sinead O'Connor. The private funeral service took place in her hometown with well-wishers lining the streets. She died in London last month at the age of 56.
The World Bank is pausing the distribution of new funds to Uganda, saying that the country's anti-LGBTQ laws contradict its values. Now, the new law makes being homosexual punishable by death and life imprisonment. It was passed back in May. Existing projects funded by the bank will not be affected by the decision. The US Supreme Court granted the Biden administration's request to reinstate a federal regulation to curb privately made firearms called ghost guns, at least for now. The 5-4 decision put a hold on a July 5th decision by district judge in Texas that blocked the administration's 2022 rule. Under the rule, the government has the power to regulate ghost guns just as traditional firearms are. Republican presidential hopeful and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis replaced his campaign manager on Tuesday in what some analysts are calling a shake-up of the campaign. The job will be filled by DeSantis' chief of staff for his gubernatorial office. Well, in the war in Ukraine, at least 7 people are dead after 2 Russian missile attacks in the eastern town of Pokrovsk. The second missile attack happened as rescuers were searching for victims of the first. Dozens of others were injured in the strike, including 2 children. The head of the Donetsk region said that the missile attack damaged a hotel as well as shops and office buildings. Well, in a State Department briefing on Tuesday, a spokesperson said there will be more announcements this week regarding the assistance that the United States plans to provide for Ukraine. Now, as the US remains at the forefront of aid donations for Ukraine, with more than $60 billion given to the country since Russia's full-scale invasion. And a recent media poll found that 45% of Americans should authorize additional funding for Ukraine, and 55% disagree, saying that the US should not authorize additional funding for the country. President Biden announced a new national monument on Tuesday as part of his 4-day tour of western states. The site at the historic Red Butte Airfield in the state of Arizona will include nearly 1 million acres and thousands.
It's not hyperbole to suggest that there is no national treasure, none that is grander than the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon, one of the Earth's 9 wonders of the world. Preserving these lands is good not only for Arizona, but for the planet. It's good for the economy. It's good for the soul of the nation. And I believe in my core, it's the right thing to do. But there's more work ahead to combat the existential threat of climate change.
Well, President Biden's action comes despite criticism from Republican lawmakers, and Utah Senator Mitt Romney described such a designation as a political football tossed back and forth as presidential administrations change, adding that President Biden's action continues the cycle of Antiquities Act abuse by the executive branch. That act, dating back to 1906, was the first US law to provide legal protection to cultural and natural resources.
Now, a woman who was bitten by a shark while swimming at a New York beach is in hospital in a serious condition. The 65-year-old woman was bitten on her thigh in what's thought to be the state's most serious shark attack in decades. Authorities banned swimming at Rockaway Beach on Tuesday, but haven't spotted any sharks since the attack.